Hey guys, it's Monday, January 16th, and this is Newswave. So if you missed it, just in case you missed it, there was a big event, obviously, this past weekend that happened that basically laid everything about Nintendo's new console, the Nintendo Switch, basically out on the table. And it was kind of met with reactions from all over the internet, lukewarm, hyped, not happy. There's a lot of pros and cons, obviously, to the system that people are seeing, and it's really kind of caught the internet by storm here, and we have people firing off opinions everywhere. But getting away from the opinions, let's talk about what they actually showed us very quickly, just in case anybody wanted a big rundown. We're going to start it right now. So first thing we got right away was the price at $299.9, and that's in US dollars. I think in yen it was like 29,900 yen. And then around the world it'll change depending on currency exchanges, obviously. We also got the launch date of March 3rd, so that's in a month and a half just about now. So we're getting very close to the launch date. Another really big feature they announced that really, I think, had a lot of fans delighted, obviously, was that they're doing away with region lock. So you don't have to worry about regionized games. They'll all work pretty much on any system. So if there's a game you want to import, say you live in the US or Europe, you want to import it from Japan, you can do that. One of the biggest, I'd say, down points of the whole conference, they did talk about online becoming a paid service now. They were very vague of how this is going to work. They talked about there being an app of some kind that you pay for, subscribe to even, and then you get like a free game every month that you can try out that then expires at the end of the month. They didn't really talk about voice chat or at least concrete evidence. Like basically just tell us how this online system is going to work. That's all we want to know. They did not tell us any of that. All they really told us was it's going to be a paid service in the fall. We'll be able to try it out for free until then, so we at least get a grasp and a handle on it. I assume that free point is going to be used for us to essentially beta test this for them as well, and when I guess they figure everything out, all the kinks are basically out, they will then have us pay for it. We also saw that you can connect up to 8 Switch systems locally, which is actually really cool. You can do 8 systems basically all around, and you guys can do local gameplay for what I assume games like Splatoon, FIFA, I mean basically any of these local multiplayer games, NBA, and you can play against each other. I assume even like Dragon Ball Z, Xenoverse 2, you'll be able to actually like fight each other over the air without the need of a router, it looked like. And then we get into the Joy-Cons, which are very interesting. At first glance, you see the Joy-Con, looks very small. Looks like it's basically kind of a plasticky controller. It doesn't have a lot to it. However, Nintendo apparently is packing so much technology into these small things. It's warranting $80 for both of them. And when you start looking at what's actually in these things, maybe they have something going there. So the first thing they talk about is HD Rumble. And what HD Rumble is, it's basically haptic feedback that is very accurate. You can do a lot of cool things with it, including they demonstrated you can feel water going into a cup or ice cubes being dropped into it. Another really cool demo that they were talking about at the event that they were doing for press, a couple people came away from it saying there was a demo they tried where you put the remote like on your hand like this, and they'll ask you how many marbles are inside the Joy-Con, and what they're doing is haptic feedback is hitting at all the right places where the marbles are rolling around, and they said it actually feels like marbles are rolling around in the Joy-Con, which is crazy. So there seems to be a lot of stuff they can do with this advanced haptic feedback and rumble feature that are in the Joy-Cons. I think their biggest obstacle with that is going to be actually getting people on board with it. You need to kind of try it out before you understand what HD Rumble is. I think most of us who have not held a Joy-Con yet still don't know what it feels like or can even imagine what it feels like. So you'll find out, I guess, if you go over to a friend's house, which I assume that's why you get 2 Joy-Cons, because technically with the system you get 2 controllers, which is cool. And I assume they just want you to have your friends try it. So that's the only thing I think of. Maybe you go to a store and try a demo unit, which word is they're showing up in February. We won't get into that though, but word is they're going to start showing up in stores around February and you'll be able to try it out then. Nintendo also confirmed the share button on that left Joy-Con, that square button. That is a share button. It'll take pictures, screenshots, and then video in the future, according to them. That's interesting based on their YouTube practices. I'm not sure how that's going to work because they want you to share video over social media, which they like to claim that. So that's going to be, I think, very interesting to see how that goes with Nintendo of America and Nintendo of Japan. Seem to clash because Nintendo of America has no problem with YouTubers putting gameplay videos up. Nintendo of Japan, on the other hand, does. Joy-Cons were also confirmed to have IR blasters. You use them in different games, such as 1-2 Switch, where you almost eat the Joy-Con. It can actually detect how fast your mouth is moving up and down to simulate eating a sandwich. And the Joy-Cons are going to come in 3 different colors currently. There's just the standard gray, there's like a neon red, and then there's a neon blue. One version of the system comes with either of those. The other system is just all gray. We got hit with a lot of games all at once in one big sizzle reel. It was kind of hard to keep up. We did have games like Steep, Dragon Ball Xenoverse 2, NBA 2K18 we assume, and a lot of other random ones, but the big ones that really hit a lot of people, they really started talking about it. We'll go over those right now actually. So let's get started with these games. We have 1-2 Switch, ARMS, Splatoon 2, Mario Odyssey, Xenoblade 2, Fire Emblem Warriors, Dragon Quest X, Dragon Quest XI, Dragon Quest Heroes 1 and 2, Shin Megami Tensei, Project Octopath Traveler, Skyrim, No More Heroes, Snipper Clippers, and FIFA. That's a small lineup. Yeah, I don't really get this whole lineup thing being small. It looks pretty good. That's not even all the games I just read. Like I said, there's several other ones that are still showing up to the Switch. Ukulele was nowhere to be found, even though that is coming. We know about Seasons of Heaven. There's a lot of games, guys, that still have not been announced, so I wouldn't deem this list as small. Even the launch lineup is like 5 games. Launch lineups are always bad. My gosh, people, come on. Launch lineups have not been good ever. Go look at any launch lineup, and it's not feature packed. It's not packed with games. We have to, the release has to be staggered. More stuff will show up. We don't even know about Virtual Console yet, so I would give it until we actually get to launch to start deeming this launch lineup as bad. Oh, and guess what? The launch lineup can't be bad. You know why? Because Zelda's there. That's right. We get an announcement that says Zelda is coming March 3rd. This followed up the entire presentation with one big trailer. Big, awesome, really cool looking Zelda trailer. And then at the end, we fade to black, come back March 3rd, 2017. You can pick it up with the system. That's going to sell the system on its own. Really, you only need a couple big hitters at launch to move the systems. And it must be working because pretty much everywhere around me, Switch pre-orders are just gone. They're sold out. Moving away from there very quickly, we're going to talk about a few other things in the gaming world. No Man's Sky had an update came out, checked through the data mining and everything by the fans, and we actually found evidence of ATV buggies, basically land vehicles. And No Man's Sky it's gone through a lot right now. Obviously, when it launched, had a lot of problems, a lot of fan backlash, but it looks like they're trying to get it all ironed out, or at least adding updates. And land travel is always slow. You can get back in your ship, but then you use resources to take off, only to land, and then you have to mine more and farm. I like the idea of land vehicles. I think that's really going to help the series. I wish when I was playing to get started, I had an ATV. That would have really cut down on probably about 20 minutes of walking around at each planet. And really in that game where you're just super lonely and it can be kind of boring walking around, any way to cut that walking simulator monotony is great. And it'd be cool if you unlock new buggies, ATVs, you build them up. There's a lot of stuff they can do there. And you know what? I think in like a year, I'm going to boot No Man's Sky back up, load all the updates, and then see what the game looks like at that point, because I feel like the continued updates they're doing is going to make this game completely different in, like I said, a year when they finish everything. So it could go from being like a day one failure to a post-launch success, like I said, in about a year or so. And let's get back to the Switch real quick. We did get our first look at the Zelda Switch cartridge. This was at the Treehouse event. You'll see it here. The cartridges are pretty small. Let's be honest. Look at this thing. It's very small. I can't quite tell the size. I had the thought that it would be somewhere across between a DS game and a Vita game. That looks to be about right. It might be it's so hard to tell. It looks like it's a thicker, and by thicker I just mean wider, Vita game. And it looks like what we thought it'd look like. I do like the box art being taller than the 3DS games. I was kind of worried it would still be a little square like that. I do like the idea of it being a taller, almost like a PSP style case if you look at it. So it looks good to me. I'm sure you guys probably think it looks fine too. Really, a lot of people I think are going to buy physical media on this system, mostly because of the storage being 32 gigs. Speaking of storage, we also did get our first look at how large The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild will be in terms of gigabytes. So what we had, it's on the Nintendo Japan's website. I have a picture here for you guys so you can see it. The Legend of Zelda on the Wii U is 13 gigs, and then on the Switch is 13.4 gigs. I assume that 0.4 is for things like texture packages, maybe being a little larger. You probably have, I would say, different processes to run the game for the CPU, GPU being put in there as well. So there's a few things, but what this tells me is this game is a straight port more than likely. It's from what the Wii U was. I don't think this is going to be a huge test for the Switch's power. However, I do think things like shadows, the frame rate, resolution are all going to be better, obviously. But I think in 3-4 years when we get our next Zelda game on the Switch, which I'm hoping another one happens on the Switch, obviously, before we call it a day, and we really see what the Switch can do at that point. I do think the first year or two of the Switch, You won't see super like good games on the Switch in terms of graphic fidelity from third parties. That first year for any system is never the best. It's usually that second year, like I said, where you start seeing like what the system can actually do. 13.4 gigs, that's not bad for a game like Zelda that's huge. That actually gives me a lot of hope for the future, considering games on the Xbox One and PS4 always seem to be like 40 gigs, and Zelda is much larger than a lot of those games. So I mean, that's really cool. I think the space constraints for the SD cards will not be as bad as people thought. I don't think most of these games are going to be 30 or 40 gigs. We'll know a little more also when Skyrim comes to the system, or even FIFA, depending on which version of FIFA it is, or even NBA 2K18, considering it does take up a lot of space on the PS4 and the Xbox One. And to finish up news today, guys, Phil Spencer was talked to on Twitter about 2 games that are in development currently for the Xbox One. Now, if you haven't been following the Xbox One, a lot of people are getting very concerned about the year coming up for this system because the exclusives currently are few and far between, and if you consider the PC market, there's not really any exclusives to the Xbox Ones right now, since most of them are going to the PC. Now, 2 games that fans are really banking on right now, especially after Scalebound was canceled, are Crackdown 3 and Phantom Dust. Now, if you don't know what Phantom Dust is, it was actually a very niche following game on the Xbox. A lot of people liked it. It was a cult classic. I actually have it and I play it occasionally. It's still a fun game on the original Xbox, and a lot of people want the game to show up on the Xbox One, but after Scalebound was canceled, which a lot of people thought Scalebound would be their big AAA, the big game, the big exclusive. Honestly, at that point, I think a lot of fans are worried that no game is safe. However, in a tweet at the beginning of the weekend, you'll see here, he said he did just play Crackdown 3, saying it's the best experience he's had, age of control, the world's very alive, the verse enemy, all that good stuff. So it does look like Crackdown 3 is rolling along. They did say they were having some difficulty with the game. Well, they didn't, but people were leaking that was the case. And it's good to see that Phantom Dust is also on track. They said he said he had a short look at Phantom Dust as well. And, the game itself, he said, holds up. They're basically, from what I can tell, reimagining it and putting it on the Xbox One so that you can play it. I don't know if it's going to the PC, but Microsoft's initiative currently seems to be, if it's on the Xbox One, it's on the PC. Which makes me think more and more that the Scorpio is basically going to be a Steam machine that runs Windows at this point, because you can get all the same games on the computer. So, great. He was also asked about the Switch that same day, and he did have some good words to say. Now, when you're a CEO of a company, you try to be as politically correct as you can, and when you talk about your competitors, you try to be as nice as you can. And the only times you aren't as nice as you can be is if you're trying to make a point, or you're trying to hammer home a fact with fans, whether it be, hey, our online's free and theirs isn't, or you can buy discs and pop them in, you don't have to be online to use them. Kind of like what Sony was doing for a while there. And Phil Spencer has always been pretty cool about the competition because he seems to enjoy, I will say this about him, he seems to enjoy innovation with games. And when asked about the Switch and his expectations for the system, you'll see here he says, Mario looked new and fresh, Zelda should be great, hybrid console will be fun to see what new game ideas come from that. And that's true. There's a lot of cool things that can happen from a system that you can play at home and then take with you on the go. I think at least I'm happy to see that the system seems to operate the same across the board. People were in the events taking videos showing that the system itself has a nice screen from what we can see, much higher resolution than the 3DS XL, obviously, it has to be. But at a 1280 by 720 at just over 6 inches, that is a good pixel per inch count that they could probably fit in there. So it's going to look sharp, and it's going to be a nice screen. And yes, guys, that's all for Newswave today. Obviously, it was very Switch heavy because everything happened about the Switch this past weekend. Like, news went on hold for the Switch to exist for a weekend, and I have a feeling it's going to be like that for the next week as more and more stuff come out. As at this point, guys, I think NDAs are pretty much done for most places, so we're going to see more and more games show up for the Switch. So it's probably going to be a lot of Switch news going forward until the system comes out, and then guess what? It'll be more Switch news. So I'm fine with it, though. Like I said, I like new technology. I like the Switch. Switch looks cool. And I'm just hoping Microsoft really gets on their horse here this year, because now more than ever, I think they're being forced to have to bring exclusives to the system. So in the same week, just real quick, same week, Scalebound is canceled, and Nintendo announces like 8 exclusives for the Switch boom, 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 done. And then, of course, Sony has a lot of exclusives coming up and stuff working with their VR. So Microsoft is in a very weird spot right now, guys. They need to figure it out. And E3 is coming up quick, so they need to have just an awesome lineup to roll into E3 with. But yes, guys, that's going to do it for Newswave today. Like, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff. If you want to support the show, there are shirts and stuff in the description below. Check them out. And guys, I will see you next time.